Welcome to the Align and Inspire podcast. I'm your host, Laura Monique, teacher and curriculum writer turned program mentor and business strategist for coaches, educators, and mentors, and creator of signature program design. I've helped dozens of established coaches like you create their own signature program that creates incredible transformations and consistent growing revenue in their business. Whether you've created a program that felt off in some way, maybe it felt scattered or heavy or just hard to sell, or you know you're delivering results one-on-one and you want to create a more scalable offer, this is the podcast for you. Here you'll find practical strategies, encouragement, and inspiration to create the offer that you will be known for, that feels aligned, and that you are really meant to create to inspire others. Let's dive in. Hello and welcome to this week's episode of the Align and Inspire podcast. I am your host, Laura Monique, and I am thrilled to have you here. The podcast is going to be changing names very soon, but I want to make sure that I do not add too much to my plate, and it's going to be something that I tackle eventually. And today, what we're going to be talking about is tech platforms, how to choose the right tech for you. But before we jump in, I just want to normalize something for you. One of my clients asked me this morning, she has just launched her first paid pilot program, her first ever program, and she has her paying members. And now she asked me, Lauren, what should I be focusing on next? There's so many things I could be doing. And that is absolutely the case. And if you are ever feeling like that as you're listening to this podcast or any other business podcast, and you're getting all these different ideas of things you could be doing, I want to encourage you and remind you really that we tend to overestimate how much we can get done in a day and underestimate how much we can get done in a year. So you can take note of all the different projects that you want to accomplish, and you don't have to do them all at once, especially if they are business building projects. So this is a little bit of a side note before we dive into the tech, but I think it's relevant when I think about renaming the podcast, and I'm going to rebrand a little bit. That's something that I've been wanting to do for a little while. But as of right now, I am really in the midst of creating my pilot program. We are almost completely full at this point. And that's really been my focus. And I really want to change the name of this podcast and rebrand it and everything because I know the name and I'm really excited to share it with you. But I really want to wait to make sure that I do this new program justice and that I'm focusing my energies on that and serving my signature program design clients well. And so this changing the podcast name and rebranding, that is a business building project. And I'm going to put that off until a little bit later when I'm ready. So I always like to think about what revenue generating project am I working on? And what business building project am I working on? Because we can easily get into the business building, working on your website, photos, branding, podcasts, even all of that business building that can grow your business, but it's not directly tied to sales. You want to make sure that you're always doing a revenue generating project first, and then you can add on a business building one too. So just a little side note for you if you are ever in that overwhelm mode. And that is definitely what I am going to be doing and shortly sharing the new name of the podcast with you. But today's episode is focusing on something super, super practical for you. And that is about tech. So if you are listening, you might be in one of two camps. One group is that you feel bad at tech, quote unquote, bad at tech. Maybe you tell yourself that you're not great at tech, you're not the techie, the tech is overwhelming, you don't love the tech part. And that is, of course, not necessarily truth. That is a story, a belief that you are reinforcing for yourself. It doesn't have to be your truth. Or maybe you know that you can figure out tech platforms and tech doesn't freak you out, but just the sheer number of options out there when you go to create your first group program, or even when maybe you have software right now, but you're thinking of changing your software, the tech, maybe you want to upgrade in some way and you're growing your program. It can feel overwhelming with all the different options out there. I know even when I was looking at my tech stack is what you call it. A tech stack is like the tech that you use. Even when I was looking at that recently, I'm like, oh, maybe I want to change this or I want to change that. Even for me as someone who is not, I'm pretty tech savvy and I've been in the business world almost 8 years. It was still a lot for me to look at. So I just want to normalize that for you. And in this episode, I want to help regardless if you are feeling fairly like you're comfortable with tech, but you're just finding a lot of the options to be a lot to choose from, or if you are someone who really says, I'm bad at tech overwhelms me, I want to have this episode as an introductory episode to really help simplify things for you, because it doesn't need to be this huge deterrent. It's something like, yes, it makes an impact on your business, but you can always change it. But I want to give you some ways of thinking about different tech platforms, different software that you can use in your group program or in your signature program, and what considerations you might want to think about depending upon which software that you want to choose. So first off, I want to share what I mean by tech platforms and which ones you need for different stages of business. Then I'm going to kind of go a little bit deeper into each one. And then I'm going to give you some guiding questions to help you choose the right tech software for you. And then I will give some examples of different tech software that I have liked using in the past or that I am currently using. And it'll give you some ideas of what you might want to use. So the first thing to think about is, what tech do you actually need in your stage of business? So if you're listening to this podcast, I'm going to go ahead and guess that you are either thinking of creating your first group program, or you are already running some sort of scalable program. Maybe it's a signature, maybe it's your group program, maybe it's a course, and you're thinking of growing it in some way, or you wanting to grow it, or maybe you currently are scaling it. So I'm going to guess that you're in one of those realms. If you are looking for tech support on how to grow your one-on-one coaching business, this is not going to be the best podcast episode for you, because we're really focusing on what you need for group programs specifically. So the first thing to think about is there are kind of two main phases that I see, and there's nuance to that. There's phases within that. But the first phase of creating a program is what I call a pilot program. It is your first ever round, and you are testing things out. You're trying things, you're trying your offer, you're creating with your clients. And if you want to know a little bit more about what I mean about a pilot program, you can listen to last week's episode where I discussed the difference between a pilot, a signature program, and a course. So the first phase when you're creating a group program is you create your pilot. It's the first ever round. Then from there, the next two phases that I see that are part of creating your signature program are refining the way you're running your program, your offer, your sales system, all of that kind of stuff, and then you're scaling. So there is your pilot phase, and then there's refining and scaling your signature program phase if you decide to make it your signature program. And in different phases, you will need different level of tech and support. Okay, so let's talk about if you are first creating your first ever program, and then we'll talk about if you're a little bit more established. The first thing you absolutely need to create, like bare minimum that you need to create a group program, is you need to have a way to communicate with potential clients, current clients, and a way to distribute, if you will, your material. So for me, that looks like at a basic level, I would recommend having an email list provider that can send out emails for you, mass emails, so that people can get to know you. You can send them emails, nurture emails, those kinds of things. And so you can send out emails regularly to your group clients. Can you start a group program without having an email list? I think you could, but I would recommend having an email list. And then the other thing that I would recommend is having Zoom or Google Meet, some way that you can actually run your group sessions. That is honestly bare minimum, and a way for people to pay you. That's all you really need to start. Like when I've created some pilot programs before, I didn't house them in a course platform. I just had them on Facebook. You can share content in Facebook groups or in Google Drive if you want. You don't necessarily need a course platform. The big thing you need is a way to send emails out. So that's something like ConvertKit, now called Kit, MailerLite, MailChimp, things like that. And I would recommend having a way for you to run either Zoom calls or Google Meet calls, and you want to make sure you have a way for people to pay you. That's bare minimum. Eventually, you're going to also likely want a course platform where people can watch your replays. If you have course content, core content is what I call it, I would recommend having that as you create your signature program. Any modules, lessons, things like that can be housed in a course platform. That's kind of like, you don't necessarily need your course platform. When I first launched my pilot or my beta for my teachers, my first round ever, I did not have a course platform. And in my second round, I did. And from there on out, I've always had some sort of course platform. So you don't need it right off the bat, but it's something that you'll probably want eventually. The nice thing about course platforms is that they can take payment too. So it really simplifies all of that for you. That's kind of the basics. Then later, you might also want one-on-one call scheduling. So, and I'll recap this, and then I'm going to give you some examples of each one. You might also want a way for people to book one-on-one calls if you don't already have this in your existing business. Like if you're using something like HubSpot, I believe, or something like that, they might do scheduling for you. One that we use locally, that a lot of therapists and not maybe coaches, but therapists or other health providers, service providers use locally here is called Jane app. So you might have a way of already booking one-on-ones. But if you don't, I would have a way to book one-on-ones if you're going to have one-on-one clients or even sales calls, having a way to book clients in. And then later as you grow, you might want something that will help you with automations and funnel building. Let's just recap what those look like, and then I'm going to share some examples. So basic level, if you are creating your first ever group program, you need a way to send emails through an email list. You need something like Zoom or Google Meet. I've only ever used Zoom. I can't speak to Google Meet. And you need to have either a course platform or some way for people to pay you. Then as you become more established, you might really want to make sure you have a strong course platform, a way for people to book one-on-one calls with you. You might even want that at the beginning level. And then you might want something a little bit more elaborate as you grow, something to do more automations, funnel building, improve your landing page conversion software, things like that, as you grow and refine and scale. So let's look at what you really need currently in your business. And I'm going to give you some questions to kind of think through, and then I can give you some suggestions. But before we do that, I do want to specify the difference between an all-in-one platform and a standalone one. So if you have been in the industry for a little bit and you've been thinking about creating a program, or you're already in the process, you've likely heard of some platforms that do more things than just like a course platform. Let's look at some examples. If you are looking at something like Kajabi, which is what I use, but I will come back to Kajabi in a second. Kajabi, or there are different versions of a platform called Go High Level that have like white labeled different people who sell their product, but it's like an all-in-one software. New Zenler is another one. I'm trying to think. Those would be the main ones that I can think of off the top of my head. What they are as an all-in-one platform is you can host your course, like you can house your course in their platform and you can take payments, but you can do other things as well. So you can send out emails. You can have landing pages. You can sometimes have funnels built in, so automated email sequences that go out. And that can be all through the all-in-one platform. A side note, because I want to be really helpful for you if you do not feel confident with tech. So I'm going to explain words that I use. The two words that I just used there, your funnel is just a sequence of events for people to get to know you and buy from you. It's like a sales system that you would bring people through. Our landing pages, the difference between a landing page and a website, this is another question I get often. A landing page is just a standalone page that people will enter in their email address in exchange for something, like to sign up for your workshop, to download a freebie. Notice it's not the same thing as a website. The other thing I want to add in here is notice at different phases of business, I did not say that you need a website. As you grow your business, yes, it's recommended that you have a website so people get to know you. When you're first starting out your group program, you don't actually need a website. And I wouldn't recommend spending your time creating a website instead of actually spending the time on selling your program. Does that make sense? So you don't need a website right off the bat, but you do need a landing page software. So you don't need to have a website to be able to have a landing page, which is how people sign up with you to sign up for your email address. That's really important. So all-in-one platforms look like Kajabi is the most well-known one, Go High Level, versions of Go High Level, and New Zenler. Those are all in-one platforms. Another one that you may have heard of is Ivory. It's like a woman-based, woman-owned version, but I think that's still a Go High Level example, but don't quote me on that. The other is a standalone course platform or a standalone product. So you might be looking at something like one that I've really liked using is called Member Vault, and that just houses, as at least the last time I checked, your course. It doesn't do emails for you. or something like Kit, where it just does emails for you, but doesn't host your course. Does that make sense? So it's like a standalone tech platform. So you can do all-in-ones and you can do a standalone one. So I want to walk you through some questions to consider as you think about what tech platforms that you might need. So the first thing that I like to think about is what could matter and what matters most, because different platforms have different features, different levels of support, and those kinds of things. So when you think about where you're at, first off, identifying where you're at in business, where you're at in creating your programs. Are you creating your first ever group program, or do you already have an offer in place or a group program in place and maybe you're kind of streamlining your tech? For example, where are you? What phase are you in? And what kind of requirements does your business need at the moment based on what we talked about earlier? Then I want you to think about what things could matter when you go to choose your tech. The first thing for you to consider is how much ease is important to you. Like if you are not very techy, you might want something that's really easy to use. If on the opposite side of ease, it's more like customization and often like a robust tool that might not be as easy to use. So ease of use versus maybe level of customization. The next thing you might want to think about is professionalism. What kind of vibe within your brand will you want to have? Is it important for you to have like a really polished looking platform? Or are you okay with maybe something a little bit simpler? Another question to ask yourself is support. How much tech support do you want? Do you want something that provides chat service at any day of any time of day so you can ask questions? Freedom of use. Like, do you care a lot about customization, maybe like in your landing pages or how you run your course? And then what's your budget? Are you looking for something cheaper or more expensive? And then from there, we can drill down. So let's look at some examples. If you want something easy to use, what a lot of people recommend is using Kajabi, because Kajabi is an all-in-one platform. There is a lot of ease to be able to use it. It is fairly user-friendly. They've got a great course delivery, and all of your emails are all in one, your payments are all in one, so it's pretty easy to use. But if you're looking for something maybe more robust, that's still an all-in-one, it might not be the thing that you want because their automations are not, as of right now, as strong as something like Go High Level. So the first thing is ease. And you might also think if ease is really important to you, you might want an all-in-one platform, because the more platforms you have, the more you have to have them you need to either manually upload things or you need to make them talk together. Does that make sense? So for example, if I have someone who signs up with me through Kajabi, but I currently have my email software set through Kit, I need to make sure that Kajabi tells my email service provider that I have a new customer and tags them appropriately, or I need to do it manually. But if I were to use Kajabi fully, I wouldn't have to worry about that. So ease, that's the first one. The next one is professionalism. So part of the reason that I chose Kajabi is because for my entrepreneur business, I know entrepreneurs often buy multiple courses, and a lot of people use Kajabi, and I wanted my users, my clients, to be able to log in easily to their online app and things like that if they wanted to. And I wanted to have a really polished look to my course. So that was really important to me. However, when I was working with teachers and I was mentoring teachers, the level of professionalism wasn't quite as important to me. What was more important to me was like maybe a little bit of a cheaper product, because it was a lower level investment and teachers aren't buying a bunch of different courses. So they don't necessarily need to have it all under one roof under Kajabi, right? So for teachers, it was more important for me to have a lower cost email platform. That's all I needed. And so I really liked using MemberVault at that point because it was really cheap, and it's still one of the content platforms that I recommend to my clients. The next level is when you think about support, what level of support you want. Do you want something that has a great chat service? Usually that's a little bit more expensive, but you can check that out. I find that so helpful because I like to get things done really fast, and I don't like waiting for a response if I'm struggling with something. So I want to have chat service. Now, I've recently hired someone who's going to help me with my tech, so that's maybe not as as important as it was before. But when it was just me and I was always problem solving all my tech, I wanted someone to be there to be able to help me if I got stuck. And so chat support was really helpful for me. And then creative freedom. This is going to be for you if you are at a higher or more advanced level of business. When you first start, you really don't need this. But if you really care about customization, being able to use your own fonts, if you're particular about the way things look like I am, that might be considering like a very important factor to you. So let's repeat those and you can think about which is most important to you from those, what could matter and then what does matter most is ease, professionalism, support, creative freedom, and money. So let's look at what possible recommendations I can make for you. It is going to be, I'm going to say this as a caveat. I resisted for a little while creating a podcast episode on this because I talk a lot about tech platforms in my own programs, but I know it's something that really holds people up. So I wanted to give you at least an introduction to this. If you are a client of mine and you're in either pilot program design or signature program design, or you're working with me one-on-one, I can absolutely help you find the right tech platform for you. I know a lot of them, but I want to give you at least a starting point now if this is something that's holding you up. So let's look at my favorites or recommendations that I would use for email lists and course platforms, and I will put them all in the show notes as well. So the first one for your email list, my favorite is still Kit, or it used to be called ConvertKit. I did leave it for a little while and I went back to it because I found it much easier to use. Another one that I've heard really great things about is Flowdesk. I can't personally recommend it, but I know a lot of creators really like Flowdesk, so I'll share that with you here as well. But I really like Kit because it's super easy to use. Their chat is decent and their automations are fantastic. So I really appreciate being able to set up automations and automatically send email sequences and things so that you might not need this right off the bat, but as you start putting freebies and you start growing your business, you'll likely want some automations in place. And so I really like Kit for that. It's really easy to, like, the usability of it is so strong. And it does have built-in like landing pages and things like that for you. So it's a really great starting point. So I'm going to add that in the show notes. And I do have an affiliate link for that one. I don't have an affiliate link for Flowdesk because I've never used it. Flowdesk looks like it has a really beautiful, like if you want to send really beautiful looking emails, I think Flowdesk really specializes in that. So that's something you can think about. And so those would be the two email providers that I would recommend. Of course, there are other ones that work well, but those are the ones that I know of and I've worked with clients. So I would check those out. So that's if you're looking for a standalone email platform. If you are looking for your course platforms, I'm going to recommend a couple that are standalone and then a couple that are all-in-ones. So for a standalone course platform, and if you're looking for something that's simple to use, and that's just a standalone and money, you want something that's a little bit cheaper. Like I said earlier, I've always loved MemberVault. I used it for years. It was great. I don't use it anymore, but it's a really great starting point if you want something that's simple and easy to get started with. So I don't have an affiliate link for that. I'll share it with you in the chat because I appreciate that one. If you want to have one that is an all-in-one, the ones that I would recommend for that, I'll give you two. One of my past clients uses Zenler. I haven't used it personally, but I know that she's found it based on her experience. That was worked pretty well for her. So that's one all-in-one. And then the other one that I would use is Kajabi. One thing I did mention earlier is one really popular one that I've seen a lot of people talking about is Go High Level. But here's the thing about Go High Level, it's a bit confusing, is that Go High Level is like it's the main product, but then people white label it on top of it. So like they'll say it's their product and they'll sell it as such and they have support around it. But like the base program that you're using is Go High Level, which is I find that a bit confusing at first. So there's all these different people selling their version of this all-in-one platform, but it's actually the basis of it is powered by Go High Level, and they might have some extras on top that help you. Personally, I wouldn't recommend Go High Level unless you're someone who's quite techy or you have someone on your team who can support you with the tech. I found it to be a pretty steep learning curve, and I'm quite techy. So I wouldn't recommend it for everyone personally, unless you have someone on your team that can help you or you are reasonably techy. It wasn't my favorite, so I don't think I'll add it to my list personally. I still do technically use it, but I wouldn't recommend it necessarily. Some of my clients do use it and they like it with their version of the whitelisted Go High Level. So I recommended New Zenler. And then the other main all-in-one platform that I use is Kajabi. And of course, I do have an affiliate link for that in the show notes. If you care about ease of use, professionalism, and you want simplicity because it does do a lot for you, it is a really great option. I mean, that's part of the reason that people recommend it so widely. It is more expensive though. If money is something that you want to be aware of as you are investing in your business and you don't want to overinvest, or you're not at a place where it can easily pay for itself, it might not be for you. But I really like Kajabi. Their chat support has been great. I used to use it when I had my membership. I left it for a while when I was at Member Vault and I came back to it and it's honestly just as good, if not better. They're always improving it. It's popular for a reason. I really do like using it for my programs, but it is more expensive. So you have to think about if that's where you want to be spending your money. So the other one, I didn't mention this one, to book calls. My favorite is Calendly. I've used it for years. It works really, really well. There are other ones. I think you can even use Google for that. Don't quote me on that though. Calendly has been fantastic. I love their software. Their help has been really helpful as well. So those would be the ones that I would recommend. I will add all of those in the show notes. I trust this was helpful. But if you're thinking, okay, I'm still a little bit overwhelmed. Yes, I've got those starting points, but I would like something that's really like personalized to me. Send me a message because that is something that we talk about and I'd love to help you find the right one for you. But I wanted to at least give you something to get started with today. So let's recap what we talked about. Remember that there are different levels of tech that you might need depending upon which level of business you're at. When you start, you just need your email list, Zoom to start. You might add a course platform. As you grow, and you might also want a way to schedule in one-on-ones or sales calls. As you grow, you would likely want that one-on-one way of meeting with people. You might need some funnel building. You might need a stronger email platform. You might want more robust data analysis or like landing page conversions and all that kind of stuff. Like I really liked lead pages for that, but you don't need that at the beginning. So remember, where are you in which phase of business are you at? What does your business actually need right now? We talked about the difference between an all-in-one platform and a standalone one. All-in-ones is like something that does like your landing pages, your course platform, your payments, your emails, everything all together. And then a standalone one only offers one service. Then to help you think about what kind of tech you might need, some of the questions that we reflected on are, what stage of business are you in? And then what matters most to you? Ease, professionalism, support, creative freedom, or the actual money that you are investing. So I trust this was helpful. You can check out my recommendations in the show notes if you would like to check out some of those tech platforms. And I will see you on the next episode of the Align and Inspire podcast.